Hello and welcome to the absolute game of nerds with your non-geek, non-nerd hosts, JP and Rohan, and our special guest, Mike from Lunch Money Comics. Comics will be with us today to discuss all things comic related. So, welcome everybody.
Yeah, so this is our second time with Mike, so we don't need to go through the whole. Actually, now third time since we did the bonus
No
episode with him.
origin story today, right?
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
we don't need to go through the origin story.
That's
But
it.
yeah,
And a
Mike, thanks
special
for
edition of Blossom.
thanks for coming on again, Mike.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's always a pleasure. I love hanging out with you guys. I love talking beforehand. People don't see this in the show, but we chat for like, I don't know, half an hour before we even start the show. It's always a good
Yeah,
time. I do have a cold. I apologize. Hopefully, I don't cough too much, but I will do my best.
yeah, I got a house full of sick kids too, as well, kind of
Mm.
thing. But yeah, I think the first thing we'll kind of talk about things that are all going on right now. So I think the obvious choice to start with is we each all three over the weekend saw the new Across the Spider-Verse movie. So why don't we just spend a few minutes chatting about that? So JP, Mike, what do you guys think?
Good, Mike. You're the special guest.
Sure. I mean, I loved it. I saw it with my son. For the first Into the Spider-Verse movie, I think it's actually the best Spider-Man movie ever. I think it's one of the best superhero movies of all time, and it's certainly in terms of style, I think it's the best animated film of all time. That movie. Every time I've watched that movie subsequently, like other further viewings, you see more, and I've been more impressed with just like the artistic direction. It is awesome. It's an awesome movie. So obviously, like the bar was set very, very, very high for these movies. People have been waiting for them for a long time. And I think the biggest criticism is it's half a movie, right? It's a long movie. It's a little slow at times. Certainly that first third, there's a lot of character building, and it doesn't have a satisfying resolution because it's like half a movie. It's like reading half a book. Like you don't have that resolution, that good feeling at the end. So it's hard to kind of judge it without watching that second half. But just by itself, the way it was animated, the characterizations, I just thought it was killer. I thought it was awesome. All the different artistic styles, and I thought all the new characters were great. They all had a moment to shine. I thought it was just as much a Gwen Stacy movie as it was a Miles Morales movie. I loved it. I thought it was absolutely bonkers and great, and I cannot wait to see the second part.
What about you, JP?
I did not have the same feeling of that movie. I did see the first Spider-Verse movie. I didn't see it in the theaters. I saw it, I don't know, a couple years ago. I really enjoyed it. Thought it was great. Didn't think it was the best Spider-Man movie, but I really liked the style of it. Like that, the artistic style. This movie had even better artistic style. The and I think the main reason why I liked the movie, I didn't love it. Okay, this wasn't like Thor: Love and Thunder for me. Like that was a huge disappointment, and this was like more of Guardians. Like I like Guardians a lot, but it's between Guardians and Ant-Man, I think, in terms of my enjoyment of that movie. It got slow for me in the middle, and I started actually to fall asleep. And I don't know if I was tired from something the night before, but it really drug on in that middle section. But the beginning was really good with the Gwen story. Um, I like the Spot a lot. I thought he's a cool villain. They used him, excuse me, they used him really well. The guy who voiced him was great. And I think a lot of the reason why I didn't love the movie, which I was trying to get to earlier, was the fact that we knew all that movie was going to have. Correct? There was no surprises, in my opinion. I didn't see any surprises, and I am waiting for this change or crossover for this Phase 5 to kick off, and it
But
just hasn't happened
it's
yet.
not related to the MCU though.
But they did put in a couple digs, not digs, but a couple sections about that Moron Parker and
Doctor
1999,
Strange or
and
whatever.
Strange or something like that. So they put that in there. They had,
Yeah,
you know,
Donald
the
Glover's Prowler. Yeah.
Prowler. So they put him in there, which was cool. I think that was a surprise. But I expected, you knew Miguel O'Hara was going to be a big part of it. You knew Gwen Stacy. Um, Scarlet Spider was not a big part. I was hoping for some other cool Spider-Man that was like from our childhood, that like Spectacular Spider-Man from the show, or something else that just surprised the heck out of us, that started to move the needle a little bit, and it just didn't have that, because everything we knew that was coming was in the movie. Even though, in Homecoming, was it Homecoming where they had all three Spider-Man together?
Yeah. No, No Way Home.
No Way Home. So in No Way Home, we there was rumors of it, but the way it went about it, right, was really cool. And then they stayed in the entire movie. It wasn't just like we're here and then they're gone. like in Multiverse of Madness when you saw everybody for 5 minutes and then Scarlet um,
Scarlet Witch.
Scarlet Witch got rid of them all like that. So, I would have liked to have more time with some of the cooler Spider-Man characters. Miguel O'Hara, I think he was brooding and looked like Venom. But I don't remember him being that big, right? And they kind of oversized him like Venom. I didn't get the whole point of why Spider Woman had to be pregnant. I thought, why she ride a motorcycle doing stunts, and then she had to help Miguel O'Hara with the Vulture, and she's pregnant. I'm like, what does that mean? He can't handle
Isn't
himself?
isn't she pregnant in the comics? That character?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I think I heard
I
that though.
don't. I'm
I
not sure.
There's 2 different Spider Women. There's the original one from the '80s, and then there's the newer one from Secret Wars,
Right.
Jessica Drew, which they
Jessica Drew, and then
retconned
there's like
her.
a Julia Carpenter or something.
Yeah, so
Yeah, and
Julie
this was
Carpenter
a
died.
different Jessica Drew. They call her
Yeah.
Jess, right? So it's a
Right.
different Jessica Drew. Yeah.
So I guess it's cool. When you do all these multiverse stuff, I guess you can go any direction you want. So, all in all, I thought it was a good movie. I'd watch it again. Probably if I wasn't as tired, I might pick up on more things. But that scene where they were in the Spider universe with all of them, and I'm trying to find them all, and I was like, all right, I want to see more of Scarlet Spider. I want to see more of name them, just all the different Spider-Man they had in there. It would have been cool just to have them have more parts. So that's all. Other than that, the ending was, oh, really? I got to wait a year for this?
At least it's only
Well,
a year.
yeah, at least the other one was 5 years, right? 5 years
Yeah.
before this movie came out. So,
I got to point out though, 5 years. This is a movie. I think I saw it in another channel. Someone said this is not a movie that looked like they made it in 5 years. Like this movie looked like it should take a decade to make. I cannot believe how much stuff is in this movie. Like again, how amazing this animation studio is. I'm impressed.
I saw today that scene when Miles is running from all the other Spider-Men.
Yep.
That scene took 4 years to complete.
I believe it. It. That's nuts.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
The first movie took 9 years to make, from what I heard.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, the animation and art style, it was incredible. Did you guys notice in the first opening scene with Spider-Gwen playing the drums, and then when she walked out into the city, that art matches Spider-Gwen #1, the comic book, which I thought was
the color
really cool.
palette and everything.
Yeah, cool. Like the pinks and
right.
And I loved all the they basically recreated several classic comic book scenes, like when he's swinging between the cars, like you have that one cover, and then I thought they homaged a lot of older comics, which I thought was great. I loved the movie. I thought it was great. I think especially too when you think like the MCU's been pulling all the multiverse stuff lately as well. I don't think they've compelled you as well as this movie did with tying it all together, making it make sense, and like pulling it off. Like I loved it.
Right.
Yeah, but it didn't. What was I don't understand another multiverse, and they referenced every other multiverse, but then where does the Spider-Verse come into it? Is that a different multiverse?
I mean, I think
governing it, and
I think this is just the difference between the MCU and the Sonyverse, right?
But they brought it up though. I don't understand why they would bring it up.
But they also brought it the Lego universe. I mean, like it's one of those it's just a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. I mean, there's some tangential connections. Yeah, I mean, actually, I think it's one of those movies, like more so than the first one. Like on further viewings, you're gonna pick up on more JP. It's one of those ones like you'd be able to pick up more characters. You see more stuff. You notice things like those color palette changes, that match the character. And that's really my biggest appreciation for it, because I certainly didn't catch everything. You can't. There's too much in it. But all the little things you do catch, you kind of like, ooh, I got that. I understood that reference. Scarlet Spider cracked me up because my son is like, why is he like talking to himself like that? And I was like, I had to explain Scarlet Spider in the 90s. Like, yeah, he's kind of like this brooding, woe is me, Ben Reilly guy, and I had to explain, like, that's how he always is. And like, Andy Samberg is perfect doing his Nick Cage impression. Like, it was so spot on. Spider-Punk landed for me so well. That whole counterculture British persona from the 60s, every joke he said landed for me. I was the only person laughing in the theater on several of those. I felt like an idiot. No one else got it, but I thought he was perfect. I thought it was absolutely awesome. It ended up being a very cool character because he comes in and actually at the end, you think he's not doing anything. He's just like a wallflower, but he actually did have a important part to play in that movie. So every character had a moment to shine. The Indian Spider-Man I thought was really cleverly done. Just
I'll
so
be honest.
many, yeah.
I'll be honest. I kind of went into that movie, obviously me being Indian, like I've seen caricatures of Indian people my entire life, and it's never something that I'm usually like excited and happy about.
Yeah.
But like I loved the Indian Spider-Man. I thought he was great.
I think it was the guy from Deadpool.
I
Yes.
went into the movie fully expecting to be like annoyed by the Indian Spider-Man, being like, oh, they're just gonna overdo it.
Right.
But no, I thought he was great. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's actually interesting to hear your opinion on that, because that's the thing. You're not really sure. Like I'm watching, I'm like, I don't know if this is tasteful or not. I mean, I thought it was really cool. Again, the same thing. The change in animation style when they went to that was really cool. And I don't know. I just thought it was awesome, and it was perfectly fit that character. And it's neat that the other characters keep their own animation style while they're interacting. Like Spider-Punk looks like he's made out of pasted out, like a collage of stuff from like newspapers and stuff, and he keeps that going. And at first, it's kind of distracting. Like, wow, there's a lot going on with that character. But when it slows down and you have those quieter moments, it really makes them stand out in those scenes against the background. So, yeah, I thought it was cool. It's a movie I think we're going to have to watch again and again.
Yeah,
but it's hard to judge without having that second half on how well it holds up, especially when they spent that much time with character development. Is it going to pay off? I don't know. We won't know. We can't make a judgment on it until we see the second movie. Maybe the second movie's all action. We don't know.
I didn't realize, and maybe I'm just the only one that didn't think. I didn't realize that Spider-Gwen would be so prominent in it. Like I agree with you, Michael. It was fully a 50-50 Miles and Spider-Gwen movie. Easily. It wasn't a Miles movie. It was a 50-50 Miles and Gwen movie.
Yes. I mean, I think Miles makes out better. I mean, I think, there was 50-50 time-wise, but Miles really stands on his own. Like, what I think the whole storyline of it is, you have, Miguel O'Hara and the other Spider-Man questioning whether he's really Spider-Man. And that's a little bit meta, right? Like when he came out, a lot of people pushed back about this new Spider-Man, and he's not the real Spider-Man, but he's become a character in his own right. And that's kind of like the theme of the movie. You have people questioning, you're not supposed to be Spider-Man, yet he does the most cool Spider-Man stuff of anybody. They don't think he has a plan. He's got an awesome plan. He's clever. He's very heroic. And I think that's what the point of the movie is him showing that he is his own character, his own person. I think he makes out really well in half a movie, which is why I think it was a little bit of a head scratcher when it gets to the end there, the whole twist that he's not in this real universe. I mean, most people knew exactly what had happened, immediately. So like they play up that whole final thing where you see like the bad version of Miles. I didn't think it really landed well. I think they dragged it out a little too long, the ending of that movie. I'm not sure what the payoff's going to be. You already established Miles is an awesome hero, and now you're seeing like a bad version of him. I don't know. We'll see how that's going to play out. But I thought Miles made out really well in this movie. I think he proved he is a legit awesome character in his own right. Very separate from Peter Parker, and rightfully so. I think he's a pretty cool character.
Yeah, and I think I'd be willing to say, and I was actually on Justin's show over the weekend, and we talked about this, but it seems fairly clear to me that Miles and Gwen are the two like tentpole figures moving forward for the future of Marvel.
Yeah, certainly for a new generation. Yeah, I mean, I know Peter Parker's not going anywhere, but enough people love those two characters. I think you're going to see them around forever. Yeah.
You know who came up with Miles's the idea for Miles?
Yeah, Bendis and Pichelli.
Yeah,
because they saw Donald Glover wearing the Spider-Man suit in Community. Yeah, and that was
yeah.
Which is crazy, that whole meta thing. Yeah, it was so meta to make him like the uncle in the first Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland, and then like they keep it going. It's great.
Didn't in that episode they were like, "You can't be Spider-Man."
Yeah.
And he wanted to be in a Spider-Man movie. That's why he wore that to get
he was lobbying for it. Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool how that came about. So that was what Community was out in 2003.
It's a long time ago. Yeah, I don't know what
time ago.
I don't know when that
was like 2012, 2014, one of those 2 years.
2011, 2015.
Fallout was 2011, yeah.
So you're talking almost like close to somewhere around near 10 years before it ever happened. So I think that's kind of neat.
That's the thing that blows me away. People, I think maybe it's just us, maybe it's because we're older, but like we keep thinking like, oh, Miles is a new character. In fact, I think anything from the 2000s is a new character. You know, I remember thinking like Echo, the character Echo, Maya Lopez. I was like, oh, she's a new character, and then I was like, wait, she came out in the 90s, like you start like, like the late 90s, I think, or like somewhere around there. I can't remember the exact, but I was blown away. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Time goes by really quick when you become an adult. So
to me, it's like anyone post Carnage is a new character.
Right, exactly, right.
Yeah, my one question though is, Sony messes up everything else. How are they getting these movies right?
They must again. It's the collaboration between the writer, the director, and the animators. I think they just hit Peter. I think they just have the magic recipe, and I'm guessing they don't have a lot of studio involvement in
Yeah,
that.
because like
It's interesting
they're
you bring
trying
that
to.
up though, because I thought the same thought while watching it. How do they not screw this up? And I also have the thought. I don't know if you guys this runs across your mind, but like I keep thinking, this is so good. I wish I saw it in live action. And then I realized they literally could not do this in live action. I
Right.
mean, they
Yeah,
could, but all the coolness factors. I mean, like the color changes. There's a scene between Gwen and her dad later, and like the background's changing to match their moods, like as they do like the different perspectives. Like they couldn't do that in a live action. It just wouldn't work. So maybe that's why, Rohan, it works, because if Sony tried doing it live action, they would just murder it. Like they just would not
yeah,
be able to do
but
it. But because animated, they can play around more.
they have announced that there will be a live action Miles movie, so I guess I'll screw
I
that one
know.
up.
I'm waiting for them to screw it up. I mean, but while we can, that's why I'm trying to enjoy these animated films. It's hard. I think it's a hard pill to swallow when, like, if you're a movie lover, to say, for me, like, it's the best Spider-Man movie when it's animated. How could you possibly say an animated movie is the best superhero movie? I
I,
just think the heart of the movie is so spot on. I think it's so much better than, maybe I'm comparing it to the other Spider-Man movies, the other Marvel stuff. I don't know. Um, I just
Well,
think
do
the
you
spirit.
know James Gunn rates the first one his favorite superhero movie of all time?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I know a lot of people
see,
do.
I have to say, there's no movie like the feeling I had watching Endgame, Dark Knight, Matrix, Empire Strikes Back. Like those movies had lasting effects. Neither one of these Spider-Verse movies had that, but they were good. They were definitely top tier. But I would not put them in a. I would put them in a top 10, but not a top 5.
It
Yeah, I
could
mean,
be because you're older though too. Like if you were younger for Star Wars, like I was, so it's amazing. But if you watch it now, it's kind of like you see the seams, you see how hokey it is. Even though I
Oh yeah,
love Empire Strikes Back, but my son thinks like Into the Spider Verse is like the greatest movie ever made. You know what I mean? Like it depends from the eyes of a child. Like it just seems this is Empire Strikes Back.
no, true. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I try to get some friends of mine who never saw Star Wars watch it over COVID, and they couldn't get into it. So it's just
No,
it had the
no,
era. The era was there.
right.
Some stuff just
My
doesn't. It
wife is
holds
our,
up.
our age, and she's like, my wife's like, this is horrible. Why do people like this? Like, I'm like, we have to
if you're,
understand it in the time. It's all we had.
well,
I
not
know.
that if you're just not like my wife is the same thing. Like I'm sure she saw him as kids, but like if you're just not into that kind of thing, it just comes across as stupid,
Exactly.
right?
I
Yeah,
have
but
a friend, a coworker, who's like, I don't like anything set in space. I don't like space, which I think is a weird thing to say. Um, but he just immediately rules out anything with space. I'm like, what about like 2001 Space Odyssey? Like, nope, space, crap. Like there's just some people who just can't wrap their mind around that concept, no matter how good the story is. Which I get, I get it.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of Star Wars was rehashed items from serials back in the 50s
Exactly.
and 60s and westerns and whatnot. But I mean, it hit well, and it was such a huge fad, and I don't even know how to call it, but it was life changing for many people in the 70s. So I thought Endgame was not, I want to say life changing, but I mean, I haven't seen a movie wrapped up that good ever in regard
yeah. I
to
mean,
20 movies that wrapped
yeah,
up that good.
it's hard to like. I mean, so first off, I personally think that Dark Knight is probably the greatest comic book movie ever made. But yeah, the feeling you got watching Endgame because they really hit a home run tying it all together is like they built and built and built and built, and it's like
Mm,
you didn't get bored, you didn't lose track, you stayed on, and then you got the pay. Like when you build something
right,
up so long, you would kind of expect like to be let down because your expectation is so high, and then you
right.
didn't get let down. And
No.
it was
See,
perfect. So
and I know we're not talking about Avengers, but I'm one of those people. I think Infinity War is a much better movie. Forget like
I agree
how
with
you
you.
feel. Yeah, don't forget how you feel. Endgame, obviously, you feel way better. But I think Infinity War is a better movie than Endgame.
Yeah,
Endgame, the fan service and a lot of those scenes was almost too good. Like it kind of took me out of the movie a couple times. You're waiting for like more bad things to happen. It's just awesome, 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 awesome. I didn't have that much of an emotional roller coaster other than the last 45 minutes of that movie. You're just screaming like crazy. It seemed more like a theme ride. But yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. And that's why, JP, I wonder, like, maybe when you see the second half, if you'll think the first half's better because it's kind of like the Infinity War Endgame. I think a lot of people like Infinity War was really good. They loved Endgame, but when you see it at the whole picture, you're like, oh, well, Infinity War is a lot better now because it sets up all
Yeah, all
that
that.
payoff that you had in the second movie. So maybe
Well,
maybe it'll end up being that way.
kind of
that's what I'm wondering.
in a similar light, I would say like the 3 Lord of the Rings movies, which I don't love as much as I did when I first saw them, but they still hold up pretty well, I would say. Like first one's great, second one's great, and then like you saw the third one wrap everything. And I remember when I watched the movie theater, I was like, the third one is the most incredible movie. Like it's so good. And now in hindsight, I think the second one is by far the best one.
I think
And actually
Fellowship's the best, but
and
I get your point.
and I was gonna say, and then I think Fellowship is even right behind it, much better than the last one.
Yeah,
So
the last one's the worst one. That's the one they gave the Academy
yeah,
Award to for the whole thing. But I think Return of the King is definitely the worst one.
yeah.
But
I've seen none of those.
oof,
I tried the first one, fell asleep. Tried it again, fell asleep. Tried again, fell asleep. And I said, forget it. And
yeah,
I said, I
you
can't
tried.
watch movies with knights and elves and stuff like that.
And
So
then
I
you
didn't
got
watch Game of Thrones. And then during COVID, I loved Game of Thrones. We binge watched that for like weeks.
Well, I
on
think too,
end.
like the Game of Thrones honestly ruined Lord of the Rings for me now because I think like now when I watch Lord of the Rings after Game
Yep.
of Thrones, I'm just like, this is some kiddie play stuff. Like this is
Right.
no real stakes here, and so yeah, Game of Thrones kind of adds that adult dramatic vibe to it.
It's funny for me, like, yeah, you can't. I like them both. I like fantasy. So I was a big Lord of the Rings Tolkien fan before the movies came out. I read them as a kid, so I was really into them. And although of course they're not perfect adaptations, and of course they're not close, but like the music in like Lord of the Rings, I don't know, it hit at a good time in my life. It's one of those things that I feel good when I watch that movie, even if it's slow. Like I feel good when I watch it. Whereas other things like Game of Thrones, favorite book series of all time, never get finished. But favorite book series of all time, same thing. When they made that show, as good as it was, those early seasons, I was very disappointed because I was like, this is not nearly as good as the books. I didn't really have that.
I had no idea you were. We're gonna have to talk about this because I'm obsessed with the books from Game of Thrones.
Oh, you don't even understand. Oh, you don't. Maybe you do understand then.
I've read them over, and I've read all the accessory books and all the side stories.
They're gonna make Hedge Knight. They're making a Hedge Knight.
I
Yeah,
know,
I have them all right here. I've met George R. R. Martin twice.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I have pictures of him somewhere around here.
Yeah, and I think
I'm
the House of the Dragon show I thought was excellent.
That show is crazy good, and the Lord of the Rings show is awful.
Oh, it's
awful,
so
awful.
boring.
It's so bad. I'm never gonna watch it again.
Yeah, it was so bad.
House of the Dragon is one of the best TV shows ever.
It's kind of funny though, like on we're all on like the comic book Instagram community, and I remember because both those shows kind of came out around the same time, and I remember people being like, Lord of the Rings is so far superior to Game of Thrones. Like, I can't even compare. And I'm just like, dude, you guys are fooling yourselves because you have this like excitement for Lord of the Rings from your childhood, but like it's not even close.
No, that's not even close. And I had a friend who I could tell he was trying to like. He kept saying like, "I'm gonna stick with it. I don't think it's that bad. I think you're being too harsh." And I was like, brutal. I was like, "This is the worst show of all time. I cannot believe how much money they threw at this." I was so mad about it. And he finally came around when the season ended, and he's like, "Yeah, that was so much worse. I was hoping it was gonna turn around." I was like,
not to mention, I mean, like. They want to make like 4 seasons out of literally like 20 pages of index. Like, there's no story
you
there.
Do it. You can't do it, and it's just like characterizations like don't make any sense. Even if you're saying it's the Peter Jackson. Listen, we're not talking about this tonight.
Yeah,
I'm checking the agenda right now. There's no Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings anywhere on this agenda. But you guys get the idea. I like all nerdy things. I'm a huge movie fan. I said this last time. So if you ask me about any movie, I will get into a whole discussion about it.
But that disappointment in the Lord of the Rings show on Amazon was like, not to tie it back into Marvel, but again, whenever you build something up to see and you get disappointed, like it's kind of a love for a franchise can die pretty quick. Like X-Men, the couple bad movies, they kind of why they kept doing Spider-Man movies without any real, recasting him again, Andrew Garfield and what they were doing with that, like that kind. I mean, fans love that, but the way Marvel did something that started and ended well. I mean, if they would have ended with Endgame and made no other movies, that would have been probably considered the best 20-some movies.
Yeah.
And now they're losing some steam, and it can happen. Lord of the Rings was loved by many, and the show wasn't loved.
But it always comes down to the same thing. The one thing that torpedoes every movie and show is bad writing. It always is. You can nitpick certain like actors or something, the direction, but it's always bad stories. If you have a bad story, it doesn't work. And honestly, I'm apologist for the MCU. I watch all of them, even the ones that aren't very good. I try to find the good in them because I remember a time when I was a kid where I couldn't imagine the MCU existing. I think you guys agree. But Quantumania, I was very disappointed in Quantumania, and I always get excited to watch the movie a second time after I see it in the theater. I always see it in the theater, but I always want to watch it when they come on Disney Plus. I was in no rush to watch Quantumania at all. At all, and I finally watched it. We watched most of it last night. We just finished it right before I jumped on with you guys. My wife wanted to see it, and I realized how badly made it is. Like, it's not the actors are great. It's the direction of it. There's some weird head scratching moments. They clearly weren't sure exactly what they're doing. The story, there's so much of like that makes no sense. Like, I was stuck. I get taken out of the movie when there's things like that where I just see bad writing, bad directing, and that movie is full of it. And I know what their intentions were, and they were setting things up long term, but they failed. It always comes down to bad writing, and that's what's going to torpedo all
Yeah,
of
I mean,
these
I think
moving
that's
forward.
what's failed like the newer Star Wars movies is the writing is just horrid.
It doesn't make any sense. And a lot of times, it doesn't make sense. Like, if most people sitting in the theater go, well, why wouldn't you just do this? Or why wouldn't she do that? Or if most people can, like, do the mental gymnastics to figure out the logical progression of a story, and the writers and directors can't do that, like, that's a problem, I feel like. And I think it takes people out of the movie. And I think that's exactly what you saw, especially in Rise of Skywalker, where they did not have a story through line that made sense. They were backpedaling, they had different directors, and Ryan Johnson did his own thing, and like they had to make stuff up, and then everyone goes, well, none of this makes any sense, and that's why they lost everybody. The actors were great, it looked pretty, but the story always gets it. People are more sophisticated now. We're better at seeing this stuff. We're more educated. Nerds know our stories, so you can't be messing around with this stuff too much.
Well,
Yeah, and I mean,
you
it's
can
also
go back
good
to
writing that
the
pulls
prequels.
in people. I was gonna say it's also good writing that pulls in fans that never read the stuff. You know what I mean? Like MCU up to Endgame got a lot of new fans that were never into comics because the movies were just so well done and written.
Yeah. And then they just had I think they have too many people, too many projects, and the writers are spread thin, and they're rushing, to get a lot of content. I think they are slowing down now. I think we talked about this last time. They're pushing their projects out longer, have more time for the special effects, more time for the writers. Now it's a writer's strike, but I think they're doing it right. I think they just did too much too quickly, and I think you just lose quality when you do that. So,
well, the thing,
except for Across the Spiderverse, that movie, that's what I'm saying. That's the one that stands out to me because I just thought it was so much better.
Yeah, I think Guardians did too. Those two probably stood out, but both of those have no bearing for the future of whatever phase we're in now, 5 or 6 or 5. So, I'm waiting for that storyline to come out and really, I don't think they picked the right characters to start phase 4 and 5 with.
Yeah, no, I think everyone agrees with that. Like they definitely wanted to.
I think WandaVision was excellent. I thought that was setting us up in Loki, setting us up for the multiverse, in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, which I liked. I think it could have been better. But the idea of the multiverse, but then there were so many other tangential side projects that don't follow that through line. You know what I mean? They don't keep that narrative thread going. You just introduce the characters, and you're like, oh, well, there's no payoff until those characters show up later. So I don't know when it's going to start, JP, but I think you're sort of right. Like, I think we need a movie to kind of start tying things together a little bit better. Is it going to be the Marvels? I have no idea.
You got the issue with Jonathan Majors. So what's going to happen with Kang? And I think a lot of people like the High Evolutionary. I liked him in
he's great.
And Peacemaker. So I'd be happy to see him take over the reins. Whatever going to happen with Major, but Secret Wars had nothing to do with Kang. It was Doom. But I think
I don't mind them changing it. I think they'll change it. I mean, I think Quantumania was supposed to be that movie. I think we all agree. Quantumania was supposed to be the movie going, oh, okay, here it is moving forward. We get it, right? We've been introduced to the idea of variants of the multiverse. Here's Kang. I don't know what they're going to do. I still think they got to get Denzel, man. Denzel's my choice. Denzel or bust. But yeah, I mean, it is curious, especially watching it like I did just, a few hours ago. You start thinking, man, he's a great actor, regardless of what's going on in his personal life. But you're thinking, man, how are they going to salvage this? I don't know. That's where they were going with this whole thing. I don't know what they're going to do.
I will tell you, based on the comment you said earlier, this was the first movie you didn't rush to see again the second time.
Yeah.
So the only movie I have not cared to watch a second time was Thor: Love and Thunder. And then did you guys see this week that Chris Hemsworth came out and was like, yeah, it was just too silly.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was my problem with it. I mean, it could have been a great story. It's a pretty serious storyline. I mean, the whole Mighty Thor. I mean, I'm like, oh, they're going for the cancer thing. Like, this is a big. All right, here we go. It's gonna be dark, and there was too much levity. I mean, it just takes you out of the moment every single time.
Yeah, and I said this in our Guardians. It's like we need to get back to the more serious tone.
Secret Invasion, man. I'm telling you, I'm holding out hope. I hear it's
Yeah,
very serious. It better
yeah,
go back to the roots that we're waiting for. So
yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm most looking forward to the Flash movie. It's not a Marvel movie; it's
heck
the
yeah,
Flash movie. So
yeah, it
I
looks awesome.
Spider Verse, Guardians, and then the Flash, and I haven't. I've liked them all recently, these last two, but nothing like was. I don't know. I think I'm being let down because Endgame I found to be such a great movie in itself. You know, I could watch that over and over again. Like,
I will say this though. Post Endgame, Spider-Man No Way Home is fantastic.
oh yeah, that
Oh yeah,
one's again. That's what I was
Fantastic.
saying earlier with the three Spider-Men in the same movie. I knew they were coming or heard rumors about they were going to be in the movie, and then they're in it, and they were in it, and a big part of that whole movie, right? They were, you know, having them all work together. Just think about it. If you could like clone yourself and work with yourself, like you'd actually get more done, obviously, because you can work with yourself better in some cases. So seeing the three of them work together, and they had different personalities, but I just thought I thought that was way cool
there's some
and
weird
done
things
really
about that
well.
movie. If you watch that movie now at home, though, which I love doing, there's those weird, awkward moments. Clearly, it was made for a theater because there's these like delays after you're introduced to like Andrew Garfield, where like clearly they're like, we need to have a delay before anyone says anything for the audience applause.
Oh yeah,
But when
yeah.
you watch it at home, you're like, why isn't he talking? Oh, but they're waiting for people to go nuts. Here comes Tobey Maguire. No one's talking. Oh, they're waiting for the applause. Like there's a several hero moments in that movie that are clearly made for a theater, and it's a little awkward when you watch it at home. But yeah, that movie's awesome.
That was that was the best one since Endgame. And again, if you watch Endgame, there's a YouTube version of it where you can once Thor or Captain America gets the hammer, and you can hear the crowd go nuts,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
that's cool to watch because or there's another YouTube video where someone did the Iron Man song whenever he got the Infinity Gauntlets when Stark got him on his hand, and he said "I am Iron Man" and clicked, you know, snapped his wrist. That was cool too. So I just it's just hard to. Matrix was a movie like that for me. 1999 Matrix was just a phenomenal movie. You
And
know,
then you get let down by the sequels.
Yeah.
yep, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm
So
checking my MCU tier just while we're on that topic. I do have Spider-Man: No Way Home as the best thing that's come out since Endgame. I actually have it rated higher than Endgame. And the second one from the after that is Werewolf by Night. I liked
Oh,
Werewolf by Night. I thought it was pretty cool.
I liked it.
It was different. Yeah.
yeah.
I can't count it. It's not a movie, but I thought it was pretty cool.
Well, I mean, I think everything content wise has to be counted now, because if you go back, you know, bringing up Star Wars, the prequels were so bad they had to make Clone Wars to kind of fill in the
Yeah.
holes. And some people
I don't
think
count
Clone
What
Wars
If
were so
though.
true, but they brought What If into the movies, didn't they? So I don't know how are you supposed to
They
count it?
did.
I don't know.
Yeah. I
Captain
mean, as far
Carter.
I
I
think as
just what if it's a hypothetical.
I think as far as MCU, like for me, it's kind of like waiting for Fantastic Four and X-Men at this point. I mean, I'm going to see everything still, but
Well, we're gonna get that female version of Wolverine whenever this is the last time we get Wolverine is Deadpool 3.
ugh.
Then they're gonna make
You think so?
X-23.
Well,
That's
that
what
was a
somebody
theory
said.
that Rage Theo gave us on our show when he interviewed him. He was like,
Ah,
because Hugh Jackman's coming on, it's like we've already had enough time away from Hugh Jackman that we can accept a new Wolverine actor. Whereas
but now
like
they're
now,
bringing
if we bring Hugh Jackman back now, you can't just bring on a new Wolverine actor because people are like, well, he doesn't compare to Hugh Jackman. And so he thinks that's why they're using him because they can then transition to X-23 to kind of fill out their whole like kind of DEI kind of initiatives.
Yeah,
What's
that's a tough
the
one.
Which
Maybe,
is like,
maybe.
how do you not have Wolverine, which would be crazy
No,
to me.
they'd
But
have to make him someone very, very different that gets people excited, like a
yeah,
big actor who's young. You'd have to introduce him like now, like in Deadpool 3 kind of thing. Yeah, I
yeah,
think you can do it with another Logan, but yeah, it's a tough. And that's the thing. Like when you see what they're doing for Fantastic Four, if they are casting like an Adam Driver, uh, obviously they're not worried too much about having different people play different variants. But
yeah. I think you do too. I get it. If you have a compelling actor, I mean, I think like
you'd have
the
to.
1989 Batman, I thought Jack Nicholson was great as the Joker,
Yep.
right? And then you see Heath Ledger in Dark Knight, and you're like, that was also fantastic as Joker. And I totally fine with seeing them both as the Joker.
but there's enough time that passed, like you were saying.
Yeah,
With
it's true. But
I
I
think
feel
that's
like
what you need.
even if there wasn't that much time, I still would have enjoyed both of them.
But then again, sometimes it falls flat. They redid RoboCop, not as good, right? I mean, nothing was
Yeah,
that gritty '80s Detroit, you know,
They can't do that. They don't do that stuff anymore.
No, and
Yeah.
I look
that
back
was
at some of that
awesome.
stuff I watched in the '80s. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe I was watching this at like 8 years old. Like,
Oh,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
I know.
crazy.
Yeah.
Never let my
Yeah.
kids watch that stuff.
I'm
Yeah.
still traumatized by some of those scenes in
Oh,
RoboCop. So
Yeah.
Running Man. Do you guys remember Running Man? Ugh.
Oh,
oh
yeah.
yeah,
All the Arnold movies I remember.
Oh, all the
the only
honorable
one
ones.
I
I
didn't
watched
see
every
was
one of them.
Raw Deal. I didn't see Raw Deal,
I
but I
never
saw
saw
every other
that.
movie he made.
Uh,
Yeah, you guys
uh,
ever like what was I doing the other day? Oh, damn it, I can't remember. Um, I was lifting up something to remind me of Commando. Remember when he was lifting up the log and he's
oh,
walking
yeah.
around?
Oh, yeah.
I was
That's the
carrying
opening
rugs,
scene.
and I felt like I was Commando because I had this big rug I was carrying around the house, and didn't weigh as much as that log that he had. But that was another great movie, the '80s,
Oh,
that I
yeah.
shouldn't have watched as a kid. Right?
Yeah.
That whole
Yeah.
shed scene.
Commando.
Remember the
Commando is
shed
like,
scene?
yeah. Commando is like
Oh
a
yeah.
perfect Arnold movie. Like, I love that movie.
Get to the chopper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
The
that's
whole
Predator.
ending of that movie is just one massive joke. When you watch it now, like it's actually hilarious when you watch
Yeah.
it because it's just like it is the stereotypical Arnold '80s movie. It's just one giant like meme, but it's still enjoyable.
Yeah. And like all the
Reminds
Arnold
me of a
jokes,
simpler
like,
time.
don't bother my
Yes.
friend. He's dead tired.
Yeah,
If
right,
you,
exactly.
you guys ever hear of pop culture leftovers, the podcast?
Uh-uh.
I would recommend finding it. They're 3 hours long, so when you got time, you listen to them occasionally here and there because it's just simply a podcast. But these guys, they're quite raunchy, but they have breaks. They take breaks in between because of how long the show is. And they had a commercial where somebody did the Arnold voice, and it's not for kids, so don't listen to it around your kids. But I'll find the exact time stamp to listen to it. I was crying, laughing so hard because they did a whole Arnold skit with his accent. It was hilarious.
Well, that's why,
And
have you heard
so
have you guys heard the skit Arnold's Pizza Factory, Arnold's, you know what I'm talking about? He's like, welcome to Arnold's Pizza. For toppings, we have pepperoni and bullets. It's just like so funny. It's so good. He's like, if you want something crazy on your pizza, like pineapple, I'll kill you. It's so good.
Nice.
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
was a favorite of mine. And he has that Netflix series on now called Fubar,
Oh, I don't know what that is.
and they did a commercial with him and Hemsworth, taking back
Uh,
to your comment, and Arnold's trying to beef up his show, and Chris is like trying to like think he's corny because he's now 75 years old, right? And still doing action movies, and it was a good skit they did together. It's kind of cool. So, but again, the '80s were a different time. The '90s were its own little decade, and I don't know what to say about the last 20 some years because it all kind of blends together. There's nothing that really ends one decade to start another one, right? Like there
yeah.
was nothing that just came to an end. This decade's been, you know,
You know,
various superhero movies.
we have the longest serialized, most expensive serialized television show of all time with the MCU. That's all we
Yeah.
have now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
No, and
well,
we've been lucky to have that. So I just hope it continues and doesn't die off in a bad way.
Yeah. On that note, we should transition to our
yes.
next topic. So it is June, so we're kind of, as you say, we're at almost like the halfway point of the year. And we always do, at the end of the year, we do like top 10 pickups of the year. So, thought we'd do a halfway point of the year. So we'll go with what have been your top 5 comic book pickups for 2023. So Mike, you're the guest. Why don't we start off
Oh
with
boy.
you?
Top 5 favorite or top 5 like best like deals? I mean, I guess there's a million ways
No,
to
no,
interpret this,
I
right?
said top 5 best books to you. Like,
Wow. So I have a list. I have a list of like I have a list, right? And I was joking with you guys before. A lot of my really good books I got this year recently are at Comic Spa being worked on, and that's certainly true of my first one. Number one for me, not only because of the book, but also how I found it. You guys know I like to hunt flea markets and yard sales. I found Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number one, third printing,
yeah,
but I found it in a antique store for $100, and it's probably like at least a 7.5 after Comic Spa is done, maybe an 8. It's a killer book, not one I've ever really desired, but it's a cool book to find. And I tell you guys, when I got it, I was like, oh, I'm gonna flip this book. I'm gonna get rid of it right away. And then I looked at it. I'm like, man, that's cool. First
yeah.
Teenage
We
Mutant
talked.
Ninja Turtles. It's
I
from
talked to you
Western
about.
Mass.
I talked to you
Yeah,
about flipping it.
yeah. But I mean, it's like it's from Mirage Studios. It's right down the street from me. The guys. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys this. I was at a comic book show. I'm editing the video right now. after there was several Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles artists there, but after I left, Peter Laird showed up like a surprise, just showed up, started signing like Mutant Ninja Turtle books. So that's probably my number one, just not only because of like the magnitude of the book, but again, I found it at an antique consignment shop for $100. I was pretty shocked by that. So that's probably my number one, but it's not right. It's not here right now. It's being worked on. So that's a pretty cool one. Number two is behind me. I can show you guys. If I can reach.
Yeah.
So I traded for this book. I did a video earlier in the year. I think this is this year. Yeah, it was like in the winter. So I put some cash towards this book and then traded a whole bunch of other stuff I found at flea markets, yard sales, things like that. I traded for this book. So I got it for a great price. It's a mid-grade. It's probably like a 4, 5.0, 5.0, I think, is what we decided. Comics I worked on it. But yeah, first Black Panther, a character I've always loved, sort of a minor grail for me. So this absolutely makes my list of best pickups of the year. Man, this is hard. There's a lot of books that fall into the same, top 5. I got one the other day. When this video comes out, I will have talked about it. So I will show you guys right next to it. Speaking of Quantumania.
Oh, yeah.
So back in the fall, I not only had one of these books, I had two of them. Back when my channel first started, at one point in time, I had two at the same time. I got a low-grade one, and then like a few weeks later, I got a slightly better one. Traded the first one to get First Vision back there, and then for reasons I've never really disclosed on my channel, I never talked about that book again because for reasons, I had to sell it back to the original guy who sold it to me. So I went from 0 Adventures 8 to 2 to 0 within a matter of weeks, and I was kind of bummed out about it. But this was actually a gift that I got this weekend. You'll find out about that video again by the time this comes out. People could have seen the video on my channel. I'll tell the story of how this was given to me as a replacement. So that's pretty cool. I definitely put this again, not only because I love the character and this is a significant book, but the story behind how I got it is pretty special. So this absolutely makes that list.
That's quite a
Are you able to tell why you had to get the other one back?
I'd rather not. I can tell you guys off the air. It was actually a comedy of things, a series of unfortunate events. So yeah, I'll tell you guys some other time. Let's see. After that, another book I don't have of X-Men 94 has to be on that list. I know you guys have been looking for those books. I got an X-Men 94 at the Little Giant comic show up in Concord, New Hampshire. Best comic show I've probably ever been to, like big comic book show. I went to a pretty awesome one, the Three Men in the Basement one recently. But yeah, that book is one as an X-Men collector, as a Chris Claremont run completionist. I needed that book, and I think I got a steal on that book for the price. I think I got an awesome deal. So that one's getting pressed by Comic Spot. That's definitely top 5. And finally, oh man, take your pick of the 5th one, guys. We got first Dead Man, first Deadpool. I just got the other day. I got the first Constantine just this past weekend. But I think the one that's going to run out my top 5. Yeah. Hold on.
I was going to say, did you also get a first Electra? Yeah,
we talked about it. So I got first Electra and an 8.5. There it is. Very cool book. Sort of fell into my lap a little bit. Local comic book vendor was selling it on eBay. I had eBay points. They had it on sale. I offered to pick it up through, waive the shipping. I ended up getting this for like $100-something. So awesome killer book. I love Elektra. I'm obviously a big Daredevil fan. So I think this one probably rounds out my top 5. But like I said, guys, I've had a good year. I've had a very good year in terms of comic book pickups. I think it's funny we set these goals. I'm not getting the big goals like the X-Men #1 or the Hulk 181, but all the secondary goals I'm picking them off pretty consistently. So I've done good. Year's half over, and I have very high hopes for the rest of the year. I'm doing pretty good and knocking stuff off my list.
Nice.
Now, did I see on the recent show you had, was that X-Men, is it 107? It's the homage to it's the yellow comic, the homage to the X-Men 1. Their Magneto's on it, Wolverine.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah, I love that comic book. Yes, that I did not get that one. That was a friend of mine got that one. I looked at it, and I'm getting something different instead. Yeah, that was in the last video. I ended up getting first Deadpool.
You got the Deadpool. Yeah, that's right.
That was part of the trade. Yeah, in retrospect, I should have just bought it. I'm an idiot. I had it in my hand. It's not a book I have. I love that comic book. It's the first new team against Magneto. I need that book. But once I did the trade, I was like, oh, I did a trade, and I kind of had a run, so I never thought to actually get it.
There's a comics or no GameStop near me, not GameStop, but a gaming store, and the guy found like four of them. He has his comics out the wazoo, and it aggravates me because he won't go through all his boxes to know what he has. And he brought out the one box, and you could just smell the old comic smell,
Hmm.
because it was sitting in the box, and they were all like, because he must own a comic store or bought from somebody who had a comic store, and they were all in those boxes that Marvel would ship them to. So they all had a nice, they're all basically pressed because they sat on top of each other. And I think he had four copies. So I did buy one or traded him for one. I ended up selling it before the end of at the end of the year, just because I'd rather have GSX one instead of that one. But I'll go back and see if he still has a couple copies if you want one. See, they were in pretty good shape. So
Interesting. Yeah, yeah, definitely
I'll
keep
see if he
posted on that
does.
one.
But who wants to go next?
JP, why don't you go?
All right. I had to go back to IG to see when things were posted and realized I don't have that old IG account anymore, which we mentioned earlier before we went live. So I had to crawl through my photos, thousands and thousands of photos and whatnot and videos to see when certain things were bought. So there was two big books this year I got that would definitely be on my list, and that's Giant Size X-Men 1 and Hulk 181 are both on my list for big pickups or for pickups I'm
Yeah,
happy
they're
with.
big. Those are big.
After that, I'd have to say um, I did pick up a Batman 227,
Oh
which is
yeah,
the
that's right. I
homage.
forgot about that. Yeah,
I
that's
picked
awesome.
that up. I picked up a Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 41, first Rhino. It's got some wear to it. It's a low grade one, but it presents pretty well. So I'd probably put those four in my top list, and I'd probably add in. I'd add. I can't forget this one. Iron Man #1. I would add into
Oh,
my
Yeah.
number 5. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's a good one. You almost
that's
forgot that one.
Yeah.
I was sitting over. I have it over here because I have Iron Man over here, and then it's not with my stuff behind me. So
Mm,
he's like one forgotten about. But I had this awesome poster of Iron Man 47. If you ever seen that cover, it's
yeah.
an origin of Iron Man, and I have a nice big poster. I have that issue, and then I have Iron Man 1 next to it, and I just forgot about it. But I had it on my list earlier. I should have wrote them all down, but it definitely was one I didn't expect to pick up this year. And it just the deal was there because I was going out to the comic shows to try to find the 181, and everybody had them way overpriced. So I'm
Mhm.
like, you sell a bunch of stuff and you got some money in your pocket. You're like, well, I can't leave the show without something good, right? Something at least
Oh yeah, that happens all
value.
the
I don't,
time.
So
Yeah.
I did a deal, and then I got the Iron Man for like $200 plus trade. So
Oh
You
really?
said that they
What
had
condition
all.
is it in?
it's a 6.0. It's graded.
Yeah, it's a nice
Oh
copy.
nice. Oh,
So
that's
it
awesome.
was cash
That's
and some
nice.
trade. I had to give up like Wolverine
Yeah.
#1. I had to give up what else did I give up? Something else pretty good I didn't want to give up. But a couple of things I didn't necessarily want to give up, but I was okay doing because I expected to get giant size X-Men. I gave up my Wolverine 88 newsstand, the first Deadpool Wolverine fight. I had a newsstand version. Thought it was pretty rare. But again, newsstand versions sometimes go for money, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And
No, that's a good
but
trade. You traded two more modern books for an old classic.
Yeah,
That's a great cover too. I
totally.
mean, that's a no-brainer. I think you can replace
yep,
those other two much easier
yep.
than you can
Yeah,
replace the
I
Iron
found
Man.
the Wolverine 88 at a second in Charles for like $3.
Exactly.
yeah.
I found them in
Yeah.
flea markets. Yep.
Yep.
JP, did you also get was Silver Surfer 4 this year?
I'm not, I'm not sure. I didn't go back. I didn't see it on the list of stuff because I went back to
It was
January.
either early this year or in December. Is one of
I
the
think it
two.
was in December or late Thanksgiving because I got Punisher or first Punisher in August or July. I remember that, and then I got the Silver Surfer book, which now I could have waited and got a much higher. It's not much higher, probably 4.0 for what I paid for this one, but still presents well.
Yeah. You can't. I
But
mean, you think like that, you're gonna be disappointed by a lot of things because comic books just go up and down.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
and like I know I overpaid for my Punisher or ASM 129. I don't care. I'll never get rid of that book. I mean, even
Yeah.
I wouldn't get a higher grade. I'm happy with. That's something Swaggle talked about. Is that and Mike? This is one thing we can talk about after Rohan does his list. But sometimes once you get a book, your Avengers Kang wasn't the case. But like my 5.5 of ASM 129. I don't really care to get a higher grade. Mine, it
Yep.
presents well. I don't need a 9.4, 9.8. I'm happy with it the way it is.
Yep.
I'm not looking for it anymore. My giant
Right.
size X-Men, I'm fine with the grade. But
Yeah.
other books you want to keep getting a better grade, and there's other books you're just happy to finally get them. So
Yeah. Real quick, I was also going to comment. You said all the Hulk 181s were overpriced at the shows. I'm convinced that if you're looking to buy like one of these major blue chip Hulk 181, Giant Size X-Men 1, even X-Men 1, TOS 39, a Comic-Con show is just not the place to do it at for the most part. I just feel like they use those books as like reels to get people into their booth, and like they're way over the top price, right? And
Yep.
like the hope is that maybe someone will be like, "Oh, I'll take it," but otherwise, it's like the purpose of those books is just to kind of reel people in to get them to
well,
search through all the other stuff.
I was hopeful that I would be able to trade for them with trade cash and trade, and they were just so overpriced that I didn't. And again, they don't give you much for your own books.
Yeah,
Right.
So you're getting half for your book plus they're doubled their price of their book. So you're so far behind the 8 ball.
Right.
There's no point.
That's
So
why the best thing to do is just like network and meet people and do it, behind the scenes,
yeah,
do it away from the comic show. I mean, and truth be told, people on my comments all the time will always be like, "Oh, those books are so overpriced at your comic show." That's not the real price. I mean, I think everyone
yeah,
knows that, like they were priced a long time ago. They're way cheaper, obviously, and especially if you know the person. So
yeah. I
there
would
is
say
a little bit of that, but
if you don't at least attempt to negotiate at a comic book show, you are a
yeah,
fool.
you're a fool. You
Yeah,
got to do it. Yeah. And but some vendors don't change the prices. They're 2 years behind and they won't revise them because they're in too high or whatever. Um, and I see those people, and they don't move their books, and then other people are willing to make a deal.
yeah,
So you just got to find the right vendor and the right people who will be willing to make those trades more of a 1-to-1.
yeah,
There are
yeah,
out there. Yeah.
they're out there. I've done a lot of trading with them, and again, if you have enough margin in what you have, it's okay to get half the value or what they're willing to give you if you got it for
Right.
that. So
I have
some
a
cases
buddy
that works.
who's selling a Hulk 181 8.0, I believe. It's quite a bit. He's looking for money because he wants to get it more into Golden Age. So if you guys have any Golden Age books, I know someone will trade 1-to-1 for one of those. Yeah,
that seems to be the trend right now. Is everyone's hitting golden
they're
age?
dumping superheroes. Yep.
Yeah.
They're rare. I mean, I get it as an antique collector. I get it. They're way, way more scarce.
That being said, I would say real quick, and this is not to like dig on anyone that's into it. I'm a superhero guy. Like I have
Me
no
too.
interest in like golden age rarities of just like random science fiction book or random war book or and then also on that note, like, do I want golden age books? Yeah, I would love a Batman one. I would love a Superman one. But
Right.
I'm not gonna afford those, right? Maybe never. Probably never. But I also have no interest in like a random golden age Superman book just because it's golden age, right? Like I would rather have a significant silver age book than a non-significant golden
Right.
age Superman book. So it's like for me to get into the golden age for it to make me happy, it's like I would have to save for 20 years to be able to buy Superman 1, say, or something like that.
Oh
Right.
yeah. Well,
Exactly.
what about the pre-code horror?
That I mean, I think it's cool. I think the art is cool, but it doesn't move me to get it for myself.
But
Same.
I'd never see those out. I'd never see.
I only see them online.
Yeah, I
Uh,
never see them at
at,
any antique store I've been to. Never
at the not in the wild. The wild, I've
pre-code.
only found a couple. The at the comic shows, the really big ones I've gone to, yeah, there's insane stuff. But again,
Right.
it's when you're collecting that stuff, you have deep pockets if you want to get into that, and you're collecting them just because they're worth a lot. Maybe
Yeah.
there's some historical significance, but yeah, that's a whole different animal. It's a whole different. Like
Yeah.
I know the last topic is the type of different comic collector we're gonna get to soon, but that's a different kind of comic collector right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And I enjoy actually learning about them, but again, it still doesn't move me to like chase them.
Right.
But then
Yeah.
again, there's thing with rare that we can get into this later as well. But Grail and rare have different meanings for different people.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's rare books that aren't worth a day. I mean, there are
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah.
golden age books that you can get for $10, and there's probably 2 on the census, right? But it's just because it's old and no one kept it.
Right.
Right.
You could find Peanuts is worth money, but geez, those Western, the cowboy and Western movies. Um,
Oh yeah.
I can't even think of
All
the
the
name.
co- all
Rawhide
the what?
Kid.
Yeah. Yeah, lots
They,
of funnies, lots of westerns. Those are like they were way bigger and more popular in the war stuff than superheroes ever were. But there's tons
Yeah,
of them, but not a lot of people collect them. They're not as desirable.
yeah,
And you guys see, like, I have some. Where I'm pointing the top row back there. I have some golden age stuff back there. I found that I just think it's cool. I found stuff at like flea markets and stuff. They're neat. But yeah, they're not books that are super desirable, so they're not worth that much money. I like them because they're old. It's just cool to hold a comic book from 1946 and be like, man, can you imagine the kid finding this, reading it? Like, that's cool. But yeah, it's a whatever. It's a whole different animal. It's a whole different level of collecting, and we do it for different reasons. But.
Did you guys watch on that note? Did you guys watch that interview that Alex Comic did on that new collection that was just come out?
Yeah,
that was every DC book that was sold on a newsstand since 1935.
Ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah.
So, Rohan, you didn't give us your list of 5.
Oh yeah. So I don't acquire as many books as you two, so I actually only have 5 books that I've gotten this year. But it's also the type of collector art which we'll get into. So I don't have them here with me right now because I'm not at my house. But so number 5 would be my most recent. It'd be Marvel Premiere 15, which is the first appearance of Iron Fist. Just a cool book. I think like I've got almost all of the Bronze Age first appearances. I think I'm missing just you can say Hulk 180 because I have, I don't have Hulk 180 and I don't have Hero for Hire Luke Cage #1.
You have
one
Moon Knight?
No, I don't have Moon Knight, but I'm not a Moon Knight fan, to be honest.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, I forgot about Moon Knight. Yeah.
I wouldn't even consider that one a copper age myself, though. I would the 5 we talked about, I wouldn't. Iron Fist is the other one that maybe I'd put in there, but I wouldn't. If I put in the Moon Knight.
I mean, like I think there are. Was it 5? The distinct ones are like the ones that are like the top, with no question, in my opinion, is Giant Size X-Men 1, Hulk 181, ASM 129, and Marvel Spotlight 5.
Right.
So
you can add in the Iron Fist first appearance. That one.
I would say Iron Fist.
See, I would put Werewolf by Night 32 over.
Yeah, I think in
Iron
terms
Fist.
of Marvel, I think Werewolf by Night is above Iron Fist.
Yeah, Iron Fist is number 6 on that list of Bronze Age Marvels, in my opinion. But
I would agree, but I think that's a clear tier below the 4 that I listed.
I try to understand why the heck, not to take your thunder here real quick, but why the heck was a Moon Knight book ever worth that kind of money? Like thousands of dollars. I don't understand. Like,
I think it's overpriced. I love Moon Knight.
It is.
People like Moon
So
Knight,
why
but I'm
would you
always
put him in the
shocked by
top-
how much money it is.
But why would you put him in a top 6 like that?
I just think for the popularity of the character, like Moon Knight is a very
it's just popularity and value. I'm not saying
is he
because of the character. That's just.
I mean, you and I don't necessarily care for him, JP, but he is a super popular character. And like, as you guys know, I've been recently getting into cards a little bit as well. And like Moon Knight is a huge character in cards. Like he's a very popular character. And I'm assuming none of those people watched the show because the show sucked.
I might be I might be misquoting this. I think it's a rarer book too, and just in general, I don't think it wasn't as popular as like Hulk. Everyone knows Hulk 180s and 181s. They're just as common as every other, Bronze Age. There's tons of them. Werewolf by Night, not so much. It wasn't a super popular title, so it's a much rarer book. Same thing. ASM 129. Everyone liked Spider-Man, so like it wasn't like it was a deep cut. Like no one was collecting it. Everyone collected Spider-Man.
I mean, when you look at the numbers for how many 9.8s there are of ASM 129 and Hulk 181, that kind of tells you the story right there, right? There's like almost 200 of each. And a book from the 70s, that's like crazy to think about.
Right. But Iron Fist is pretty, actually, I think is a fairly rare book too. I mean, they weren't as popular, those Marvel premieres and stuff. So still a great pickup. So,
yeah, no, I saw the deal and I was like, I'm getting that. I thought
it's a cool book. It's a very cool book. So what else you got?
So number 4, I'm going is Submariner #1. It's a lower grade one. It's not one that it's one I wanted. It's not one that I wanted to spend a ton of money on. And I have Iron Man 1, I have Iron Man and Submariner 1. And so I always wanted Submariner 1 to kind of finish off the trio. I was just waiting for one that was like not $500. Because again, like it's not a book that I think is going to have huge value increase. I just want one that looks good. Okay. And so I found one just recently and was able to pick it up. So that'd be my number 4. Number 3. This one I got in trade. It is a British Pence version. So it is Fantastic Four number 12. It's also a lower grade. This one's graded at a 2.0. That's one of my all-time favorite covers. I love that Jack Kirby with the gray background and then the colored Fantastic Four and the Hulk. Not to mention, like I'm a huge Thing fan, and I think the Thing Hulk 1v1 battles are the best 1v1 battles in Marvel. And so it's the first time they crossed paths was a good book for me to snag.
It's one of the first crossovers at all of any Marvel movie. It might be the first one.
It's the first crossover of a major character in its own title coming over into another major title.
Right. Yep. Cool. That's a cool book.
And then from there, I would go ASM 129, which was ASM 129, and then my top book, Hulk 181. Yeah. Hold on one second. I'll be right back. You guys keep talking.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, that's a pretty good list. Yeah, so he only gets just real big books, right? Is that we're going for the collector style?
Yeah, he essentially just traded everything off he bought in the last year to get not everything, but he didn't have any sentimental value to the books he had gotten, so he was okay with trading them to get to buy up. And
yeah, I get it. I think we've talked about this in the past too. Like, quality over quantity is definitely a collecting style. Yeah, if you're a collector of value. I mean, I like to read my comic books. I like to have lots of different comic books, but I have those moments where I look at all the comic books behind me and I'm like, yeah, if I didn't spend, $100, $200 every single time to get all of these, I could have easily bought, X-Men #1, like by now. I definitely see the point to that. So
that's Rohan's point, is that if you just didn't buy anything for 3 or 4 months, you'd be able to buy the bigger book. And it's kind of like it's with your antique world. When you're out, like I was at an auction over yesterday, and I think I got an exercise bike for $3, right? I'm pretty sure I can flip it for 50, so that's money towards the next book. But if I didn't spend that 3 plus the other $47 at the auction, I'm sure I could buy more comics or a bigger end comic.
Gas to get there, if you actually, all that stuff you think about. We're just telling you, we're talking about your style. Clearly is you want quality over quantity. You're looking for just the big books, which I think is definitely a collector style. You could just not buy, like I think about all the time. I buy like $100 and $200 books all the time. It's also a side effect of having a YouTube channel and making content. And there's lots of comic books I've always wanted and I'm always trying to fill in, but there is a part of me that says, wow, geez, if I just look back at like all the books I just mentioned to you, my top 5, I could have got X-Men 1, no problem. If I didn't buy any of the books this year, I could be doing stuff like that, but it's a different collector style. I know that's the next topic, but yeah, I appreciate your style, and if that's the only 5 books you got halfway through the year, that's a pretty good start to the year, regardless.
Yeah, no, I'm not complaining. It's definitely been a good year, and then my goal is by the end of the year is an X-Men 1, and that will probably honestly be like the last, if not maybe one of 2 books I get in the entire year. Like that's how much it's going to take me to work up towards it.
So would you trade any of the books that you just talked about?
I would trade all 3
for an X-Men 1. I mean,
I would trade the bottom 3. I won't trade ASM 129 and I won't trade 181. But I would trade, and I actually almost traded. So I almost got a Daredevil 1 this year, which would have been awesome. So I don't know if you guys watch Bry's comics. So
I know who he is.
Yeah, he does a ton of volume on books. Anyways, he had this Daredevil 1, and it was a 1.8, but it was like a great looking 1.8. And I was like, that would be perfect. Like I would, because again, for me, comic books are not my retirement. It's not, I understand the investability of comic books, but I have, that is money used elsewhere is for actual retirement. So comic books is more of a fun hobby. But does that mean I want big books? Absolutely. And do I understand value? Absolutely. So it's like I'm always looking for a good deal. But in terms of the books I want, grade is not as important as presentation. So it's like if I get the book I want and it looks how I want, like my Marvel Spotlight 5, like I've told this story before, it's a 2.5 because someone took a pair of scissors and made like a 3-inch cut in the cover. But like when it's in the slab and it's like you can't even see that the cut is there. So it looks like a 5.0. Like that, like I'll take that all day for the price discount on the 2.5. And so this Daredevil 1.8 was kind of in that boat. And I was like, oh, I didn't have the money. I was like, but let me see if I can trade for it. So I packaged up. And so I messaged Bry on Instagram and he's like, okay, what do you, he's like, yeah, I'm open to trade. What do you have? And I think it was a $2,000 price to buy and it was $2,500 for trade. And so I put together, it was my ASM 300, which is an 8.5 signed by Todd McFarlane. My X-Men 266, it's a 9.4 signed by Chris Claremont.
That's cool.
My Fantastic Four number 12. It was my ASM 238 signed by John Romita Jr., which is a 9.4. And was there a fourth book? What was the fourth one? Oh, and my New Mutants 98, which is a 9.4. And it was like, I think each of them were like $600 to $700 in value each, and then the Gambit was like 300 or something like that. So I was right there at the 2,500. And so we were about to like be like, oh, as we had, because I was giving him the books, he was looking at the value, and like we were getting to the total, and it was like I think I was like 600 short, and that's when I added on the Fantastic Four 12. And right as I did that, he was like, oh shoot, someone just bought it off the website, because he has it all listed on his website.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I like went on the website and it was like sold, and I was like, oh,
That's
heartbreaking. Because
that's a grail on my list too. That's
yeah.
And the books you traded, I would trade in a heartbeat for that.
All of those books I could easily get again. The ASM 129 and the 181, again, we talked about, they are common, but they took a lot to get to, and I got great deals on them, and those are books I want to keep. Like, they mean a lot to me, and so I don't want to get rid of them. So that's why I wouldn't trade those two. But the other three, absolutely, because the other three too are always easily accessible to get again. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'm more of a hoarder in my style, so I don't know. But Mike, you and I might be similar, but it's. I don't know if I have any more books I really want to get after this. I'm kind of like doing the picking and see what I find.
Yeah, I think that plays to, like, what our next one is, like, what kind of collector are you? And I'll start this off just so you kind of understand where it goes. Like, I know for my pure self, like, I am an absolute first appearance collector. Nothing moves my needle more than a major first appearance, right? So all the books I want are ideally all the major first appearances. From there, I do love both the major first solo series, like hence my Iron Man 1, my Silver Surfer 1, Submariner 1, right? And I do love the absolutely classic covers, my Silver Surfer 4, Fantastic Four 12, etc. So, but first and foremost, it is first appearance collector all day, every day.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think I fall a little bit more into that than I like to admit. Like, certainly my channel, you guys know, it's about, I talk about the stories, I talk about the art, I talk about the books that mean a lot to me. But at heart, we talked about this in the past. I go back to those cards I had as a kid. I like the first appearances of the characters that I like. Those major characters, there's something about having that book that's mentioned on the back of the card that's always, moved my needle. And I like to read X-Men books. So those are the two big areas I like to collect. In the big Marvel characters, their major books, in all the X-Men books that I like. But because of the way I hunt for comic books, I like to find things cheap. I like to find bargains. Although I don't talk about value and spec on my channel, like, I am obviously very cognizant of the collectability of these books. I don't think they're a smart investment. When people start having that crazy talk, that's a different thing. But like, I'm aware of what the value of these books are worth. So I'm always looking for books of value that I might not necessarily want, like that TMNT #1. I'm happy I found that book at a great price. And as cool as it is, I probably will end up flipping it for a book that I want. But Rohan, despite what people see on my channel, all the books I have, I try not to have too much clutter. I have enough stuff down here, trust me. I'd rather have just the books I want, because I'm a collector. I'm not gonna resell these books that I want. They're books I want to hold on to. They're not an investment. But everything else that I find is a bonus. That stuff I see as a way to leverage into the other books that I want. So that's why I'm always hunting for books that maybe aren't moving my needles. They're cool. I know they're worth something, but they're not something I want to long-term keep in my collection. It's just hey, I found this cheap. I can resell to get a book that would be otherwise difficult to get.
Is there like a size of margin that you like? Like, would you buy a $3 book to sell it for 20?
I've bought a $2 book to sell for 10. I did it just the other day.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it depends how I'm selling it though. Like eBay, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't really sell too much outside of eBay. If I find a book I know is worth like $10 and it's a couple dollars, I get it because it's fun to talk about. It's fun to like trade. That's the other thing too, is like, yeah, you're only making $8, but in a trade, it looks nice. Like, hey, I only got that book for $1, but now it's $10 value in a trade. So I don't like, if I'm not selling it, but yeah, like, I'm happy to do that. But when you start factoring like eBay and stuff, it's obviously not worth it to do that sort of stuff when you factor in fees and taxes and all that stuff. But in general, no, I like having extra copies of books, even if they're like that's what, like, first appearances of X-Men, even if they're like not great X-Men. If it's cheap, I'll always get like First Forge. I like Forge. You can find that book for a couple of bucks. I'll always get it for a couple of dollars. I don't care. I probably have 5 copies of it. First Firestorm. I'm looking at a couple right here on the wall. First Magic. I'm always happy to pick those books up for a couple of dollars because I know they're worth $10, $15, $20 in the right condition, and I might trade them, or actually, honestly, I give them a lot of times away. Hey, like you like X-Men? Here's a whole bunch of first appearances of X-Men I got for nothing. That's why I look at that stuff that way. So, but yeah, I mean, I think I'm more similar to you, Rohan. But yeah, like again, when you watch my channel, people see me buy lots of cheap comic books. I enjoy the thrill of the hunt. It's not just comic books I collect. I collect other antiques and things of value, other collectibles. I like finding them and finding good deals and reselling them. But no matter how you break it down, that's just me leveraging into the books that I want to keep forever. Or I'll give to
and
my
to be
kids.
perfectly
When I
honest,
die,
like
they can sell them, I guess.
the hunting, the strategizing, the talking of getting it, the talk of after getting
It's
it.
fun.
That's the most important thing for me. Like once you get it, kind of like I don't have yet space like you guys have, but like to me, the joy is fully like, okay, I gotta find it. I gotta work towards it.
Thrill of the hunt, man. Yeah, that's what keeps you going.
Yeah.
And that's again, that's the whole hunting aspect of it. That when I'm out there digging, like it's the thrill. It's the like, ooh, I could find a treasure any second now. And I found so many cool things in the wild. I think the other message I like to put off as the type of collector I'm at, we talk about big expensive books. You don't need to spend a ton of money to build a great collection. There are different types of collectors. People like different things. I would always say if you're buying books that you enjoy, you have a great collection, right? It doesn't matter how much it's worth. If you enjoy it, congratulations, you have a great collection. But I think people get caught up in the money aspect too much. And even expensive books like we're all talking about now, you can find them cheaper. You can wheel and deal and you can trade up from that paperclip or that thumbtack, all the way up and get bigger books. And I think that's exciting. That's what gets me excited about it. And that's the message I want to put out there for people.
Yeah.
You don't need to be rich to do this stuff.
I'll repeat the question you asked me then. Of your top 5, would you trade away any of them to get to the books you're talking about leveraging for? I bet you trade that Deadpool.
Deadpool, yeah, I don't know if that made my top 5. Yeah, I would definitely trade the Deadpool, even though it is an X-Men affiliated character. Well, I'll tell you what yeah. Oh,
he's better than Cable.
No, I mean,
yeah.
I'm alone in this. Maybe Mike's with me, but I like
he's
Cable
with you.
Deadpool.
Cable's way cool in the Deadpool. Come on, it's not even close. Not even close.
The movie made Deadpool. The movies made Deadpool. That's my opinion. I liked Deadpool back in the day. I had more of a fondness for Cable until the movies. So kind of like you like Luke Skywalker, then you realize how cool Darth Vader and Boba Fett are, and you move to Darth Vader as your favorite character.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Deadpool falls in that whole like 90s gimmick characters a little bit, and he's only cool because Ryan Reynolds did a good job with him. Anyways, not the story. To answer Rohan's question, I'll tell you the books I won't sell. Like so X-Men 94 because I'm filling the whole run out. I'm keeping X-Men 94 because I need it. I'm keeping this one because it was a gift. It's a character. It's a cool comic book, and again, I have a story behind this. I'll have to share on my channel. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's as cool as it looks back there when I get it back. That's probably gone if I can get a better book for it. Elektra. I could probably trade Elektra and no. Maybe if I got a better copy of this one, yeah, I'd let it go. But no, I mean, again, the ones I named, I kind of named my top 5 because they have a little bit of a sentimental value. So see, that for me, that's the important part. Like, if someone came to me with an X-Men 1 right now and said you could let those go, yeah, sorry, bye. Like, I'd feel bad about it. But that would be the only case I would do something like that because it's a book I really want to have, and it's harder to replace. But in general, no, I pick books that mean something to me that I get the feels from, and a lot of these books I mentioned would, and I would have a hard time getting away from that. So yeah.
You look at all the books that we have. If you traded them all for X-Men 1, you could do it. I mean, Rohan, you could get, so. But then what do you have left? One book, right? And
that I agree. Like, people talk about like, oh, would you trade your collection for Batman 1 or whatever? And it's like, I still, my collection's probably not worth the Batman 1 yet, but like, I wouldn't want to though, because of, like you said, like the one book isn't necessarily as fun as having the others with it.
I will say this: as much as I love all the first appearances of these characters, I look at the cards, I love all these Marvel characters. If I was really put to the screws and someone asked me, what is your retirement collection look like? If I had to just pick what I wanted, I would probably trade everything I have away to have X-Men 1 through 500. Or even 1 through like 300. I'd probably, if I ended up with just all the X-Men books, I think I could be okay with that.
And I could say that if I had all the Spider-Man books. I had
yeah,
one
I
through
mean, that would...
400, let's say.
Yeah, that way you get Carnage.
You'd have
Yeah.
a very expensive collection. I think I
Yeah.
told
Yeah,
you guys
but
the
what
story.
the
I found a guy down the street from me who had every X-Men book ever made. I think I told you guys
Yeah,
the
yeah,
story.
yeah.
Yeah,
wait,
when
isn't
I
that
looked at
worth
his
a
collection,
ton? Isn't the
yeah,
X-Men's not worth
it
as
is,
much
but
as
not as much as Spider-Man.
oh,
Spider-Man, ludicrous. If you even just like 1 through 100, oh my goodness, it's a lot of money
Yeah,
there.
I mean, if you go on Key Collector, I think 1 through 50, I think like 46 of the books are on Key Collector. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
they're all... Spider-Man's always expensive too.
Yeah.
Because that's what I mean. Like X-Men, yeah, you get some really expensive ones early on. You have 1, 4, very expensive, but like you can get like 7, 9. Like you can get
Yeah.
ones that are pretty early for like under $100. You can still do that. I don't think you can get like any Spider-Man book under 50.
Yeah, I
Under
mean,
$100. Like that would be, unless it was in tatters.
in terms of X-Men, right? You have 1, 4, 12, 14, 50, Giant Size X-Men
Nice,
1,
yep.
94, and 101. And then any other X-Men book beyond those?
Right
if
off
you
your
had-
head, man. That was well done. That was very well done. I would throw a couple of pseudo keys in there, like 50, 58 back here.
No, my point though is,
general, yeah.
aside of the books that I just named, you can get them all for under $100.
They're not exactly. That's exactly right. Right. There's not many gigantic ones that sneak out there. And on top of that, a lot of the ones you named, they're like first appearances of like villain. Like Juggernaut's awesome, but he's not Punisher. You know what I mean? Like he's not this. The X-Men doesn't have lots of like major characters that made a first appearance. And Scarlet Witch, you throw her in there, but that's kind of it. Whereas Spider-Man, every Rogue Gallery character, all these other heroes that came in, like they premiered in Spider-Man. That book is worth a fortune. Besides the fact it's Spider-Man. So
yeah, the only other run I think that comes close would be Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four, same thing. You look at the Fantastic Four, the list, it's like, oh yeah. I mean, just every other book. Like I talk about that run from the 40s to like mid 50s. Like you got to be kidding me. You have first Silver Surfer, first Galactus, first Black Panther. Just it goes on and on, one after another after another. Just that one run of 10 books. First Inhumans, Black Bolt, like nuts. Yeah, there's not many. Yeah, no. So those are the big two. Fantastic Four. Actually, I would argue which one? This is another whole discussion for another time. Which is more expensive, Fantastic Four 1 through 100 or Amazing Spider-Man 1 through 100?
I think
I'd be curious.
I think 1 through Spider-Man is still the top.
Yeah, but that first Fantastic Four #1 in a high grade.
That's why
probably,
I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that's where you might be right, Mike. That's
because it's their first appearance, right? Because Spider-Man's first appearance.
Yeah,
in there,
and we actually have. So last year in 2022, a 9.2 Fantastic Four #1 sold for $1.5 million. Right. And then recently, at the beginning of this year, a 9.2. Actually, that was a 9.2 AF-15 was $800,000, which I think was actually under what they were expecting for it. But like that's also timing of the market and everything.
Right. But it's not in the run. I'd be curious what the most expensive run. Yeah, Marvel run would be. Obviously, you can't do DC because DC Batman and Superman would crush all of those. So
let me ask you this question then. With that in mind, take values outside of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all essentially
happy to.
We're mostly Marvel guys. If you could have any 2 Marvel books, what would your 2 books be?
Oh, so value doesn't matter. Marvel books, value doesn't matter. That's brutal. AF-15 and X-Men 1.
Okay, yeah, I think I would go X-Men 1 and Fantastic Four 1.
Yeah, but why?
Oh, I just love Fantastic Four. I'm a huge.
But why? I mean, like those both have like. Is there a run like the Phoenix Saga or the Venom Saga or the Silver Surfer Saga? So if I could have any 2 books and I'm a Silver Surfer fan, I'm going to grab 49 through or 48 through that run just to have those 3. There's 3 there, right? But
I mean, there's a factor of like. There's a factor of just like
ambiance.
I love Silver Surfer, right? And outside of value, though, it's like you cannot. Like there are like a few cornerstone books that we all know in Marvel, and like even though we take value aside of it, like they just have an aura or an ambiance or a grandiosity to them that like so my number 3 would be AF-15.
Right,
but that's because the value's there too. That's why.
No, mine's easy because if my favorite characters in comic books are the X-Men and Spider-Man. So I would want those books because I would say, hey, this is the first time anyone ever saw them from a historic significance, regardless of
Yeah.
value. If you want to talk about
Historical
story,
significance,
like if I had two
that's
books
great.
to read, that's a different one. If you said I can only have 2 books to read,
Yeah. So
we'd be
if
having
you
a
got
different. Like I think of JP, I think we'd be going for the answer you're talking about. Like
yeah. Yeah, if you wanted an interesting read and artwork or whatever it would be, it definitely wouldn't be any Jack Kirby books for me.
Oh,
It'd have to,
I will say to answer to read.
there it
I'm
comes.
going
There it goes.
to read. I'm going Fantastic Four, 48, 49, and 50. I think that trilogy is the best
Yeah.
like story. Like, and
I'm not saying it's not the
even
story
Stan
I'd
Lee
take.
says Fantastic Four 49 is his favorite book ever. Silver Surfer is his favorite character. Like, yeah, I mean, I just gotta think like that came out in the 60s when like that was so out of this world. Like, you got to imagine what that concept was like.
I can't pick 2 books. I mean, I would love to pick Dark Phoenix Saga. If I had to pick 2, I guess I'd pick Days of Future Past. X-Men.
Yeah, I guess we
What
should
book
say
do you
like
want?
favorite storyline to read. It would be a better question for that. That way you can.
Yeah, I think again, yeah, you have to say storyline. I guess that makes sense. Most books aren't 2 stories. Back in Silver Age they were, but yeah, Dark Phoenix Saga would probably be near the top of my list. Days of
Yeah.
Future Past, I think is awesome. You know.
Yeah, Dark Phoenix Saga would be up there for me too.
Yeah.
I'd have to go with the symbiote, the first appearance of Venom. I'd take
Yeah.
that 298 to 300, 301 maybe. But that's probably nostalgia too, not as much I didn't read a lot of the books. I just love the artwork, and that's why I gravitated to those books. I think Dave Michelini, how do you pronounce his last name? Michelini still wrote a great story there with Venom. I mean, the art and the writing went well together. Unlike Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, he needed someone else to draw.
There's different times, simpler times.
Yeah, JP.
I was looking back at I have
Sacrilege.
I have OMAC #1. Do you guys know OMAC?
I got a couple of them. It's you can't if you're talking Jack Kirby, we can't talk about the crazy 70s stuff, man.
Yeah, the OMAC one was okay. Then you got the Silver Star, then Captain Victory. I was like,
so
God,
bad ones.
That's terrible. And then so I mean, Rob Liefeld made some bad drawings. His Captain America, the Busty Captain America, but I don't know if McFarlane he doesn't have any bad artwork like that.
Yes,
bad.
He does.
Yeah, he does.
Like what?
There's a couple that in that Spider-Man run that I don't love.
I'm gonna open the wound right now. Hulk 340, guys. Awful cover. It's
get
so
out
bad.
of here.
It's so bad.
No,
I can't believe how much people like that cover.
I'll
terrible. It's so bad.
Awesome cover.
People will curse me a little bit for this.
Overrated.
I don't love McFarlane's Hulk.
I loved his Gray Hulk. I love.
I don't like how he does the eyebrows. Like I don't like it at all.
I love one book I didn't mention earlier on my top 5 that I got a signed Amazing Spider-Man 328, which was the Cosmic Spider-Man versus the Hulk.
Oh yeah,
that cover is one of the best covers I think McFarlane ever did. All that detail, again, the Gray Hulk with the eyebrows and the hair, and he's punching the Hulk into space, and that just was an awesome storyline. That because he became Cosmic, which happened in Spectacular Spider-Man. What is this? 158. He was able to, he took over. He had those special powers, which I hoped we would have saw in the Into the Spiderverse.
Maybe it was in there. I have one of my favorite books as a kid. I had a What If Spider-Man kept his cosmic powers. You have that one?
Found it. Yes.
Oh, that's a cool book. I used to love that comic book because I
never had it.
I didn't know he had cosmic powers. I used to love What Ifs. I was like, wait, when did this happen? Like I was just blown away by the concept of this. I had no idea.
But he was regular Spider-Man with the webbing to make him fly, right? Because he added the webbing underneath his arms. Yep. That Cosmic Spider-Man was like Captain Universe or something, right? Where he still was blue with like the red Spider-Man mask on his face. Yeah, and that's another book I always saw like long shot and never bought. I don't know why. It was probably $10 if anything, but I didn't get it. And now I found that for like I don't know, it was pretty beat up, but I just had to have it because it was the one I wanted. But I thought that McFarlane drawing the Hulk was, in my opinion, the best Hulk. Which let me go grab it real quick.
I'll just hold down the fort by myself here, guys.
You're capable, right?
I'm used to this stuff. Yeah, I don't usually do live stuff, so
you can't tell me that this is.
I'm not saying it's bad. No, Rohan said he didn't like him. I mean, I don't think he's awful. I like the Gray Hulk in the Hulk run when he first splits off. I like the way he was drawn. I
Look at the
mean, it's
detail
cool.
in his arms, and I mean, it's. I got this in a
I don't
9/8.
love Gray Hulk. Period. I've never been a big like Joe Fixit fan. So
I
Hulk
didn't.
Green. I like him green.
I won't say I don't like because McFarlane drew him gray. That's why I like the Gray Hulk. He wasn't as
Mhm.
powerful as the Green Hulk. Um, but I did find this. I got a 9/8 signed by McFarlane, full Todd
Pretty,
signature, and
yeah, that's
it's
pretty cool.
newsstand.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
a good
supposed
book.
to be pretty rare, and I bought it. It
Yeah.
wasn't cheap, but this was McFarlane's last drawing or last artwork on Amazing Spider-Man, and it was his two best characters. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know. I think I don't think he has any bad artwork, to be quite honest with you. His Spawn work, I if you look at some like late Spawn books like in the
Yeah.
50s, it's ridiculous.
I mean, I don't think I certainly wouldn't say he's bad. I think he's a great artist. I just he has a unique style that I think some people love him and some people just like they just aren't into the style. And his style is to me is so. I actually like his earlier stuff. I know I was making fun of that Hulk 3 I like his earlier stuff because it's more traditional comic book style. Then when he
Right.
starts getting into his own Spawn stuff and doing Spider-Man, it's very stylized in his style. Um,
Yeah.
so like if you're not full into like his style, like it's not like it may not be your thing. So that's for me. I like McFarlane, but his style just reminds me of the early '80s, early '90s so much.
But
So he's
so
not
does that.
bad. I mean, obviously he's incredible. He's a great
He's
artist, but
10
he's
times
a
better
nice.
than Kirby, though. Come on now.
Kirby's classic. It's classic art.
Buscema, Ramita, those guys did great Spider-Man work. I mean, who drew X-Men? I can't even think of who drew
Jim
X-Men.
Lee. I actually like.
No.
Well,
Back in
what?
the
John Byrne.
You're
no,
going
even
back. You're talking
further.
Silver Age. Lots of
X-Men
different
1, yeah.
people.
X-Men 1 is
Well,
Jack
X-Men
Kirby.
Jack Kirby, yeah.
Jack.
But then
Okay,
yeah,
is he doing it? Oh, that's why
but
I
it
don't want
wasn't
to
like
get
they
that
didn't
book
really
then.
have many artists that did it like a long run at once. There were different
Yeah.
people came in different times.
I mean, I've said this 100 times before. The Buscemi, Thor, Silver Surfer, great artwork. Romita had good Spider-Man work. Those guys, I think, were classic artists. And then Byrne, Milgram, Cockrum, and Zek. I would give those guys the Silver
Mike
Age.
Zach, wow.
I wouldn't think any
I
of those
mean,
guys are Silver Age. Those are all bronze.
I'm Bronze Age. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
Like
right.
70s stuff, 70s, 80s.
Well, yeah. I mean, if we're going to that, but like Neil
Oh,
Adams,
there's so many. Neil,
Yeah,
I get
Neil
throw
Adams,
Neil.
but like
Neil,
this is
second
Mike
to
Zek
none, man.
cover, right?
yeah,
So I mean, all day long that kind of book. I mean, just
Yeah.
depends. It's the cover artwork,
Neil
But
Adams, yeah. Then you
but
get a lot of like Barry Windsor Smith was great. Didn't do a ton of
yes,
stuff, but like really great artists. Like there's a lot of guys.
yeah. Bernie Wrightson, another one.
When you're talking the '70s.
Yeah,
but you put in
But
Barry
the
Windsor
silver, and
Smith.
especially the golden age, it's a different aesthetic. I have a hard time, even when I
exactly.
get excited about some of these like specters, I like, oh, like Gil Kane, like Murphy Anderson, like, oh, great. And like, it reminds me of the hokey comic book style of the 60s. Like, that was the style.
Yep.
They didn't get kind of more realistic and gritty till later on. And it's the same thing with Stan Lee. You read the stories, like, yeah, it's great. You can relate to the characters, but they're very wholesome. There's not too many controversial or edgy things back in the 60s. It was a product of the time. I think Kirby falls into that. I just think his character designs are so classic. They transport me back to the 60s when I look at his art.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It just dates it, right in that time. And there's not many other artists that do that for me.
But
Yeah.
I look
Except
back.
for McFarlane puts it firmly in the early 90s.
Yes,
and
McFarlane
Rob
puts it in the
Liefeld
90s,
is
but
freaking horrible. Rob
Walking-
Liefeld is
yes.
favorite
Liefeld
comic
was.
artist.
I have to say, New Mutants, 87,
98.
98. Was there a 94 in there too?
No,
Not really, it's
the
just those
three New
two.
Mutants books are 87, 98, and 100.
So you take those three, and the first X-Force, first 10 of the X-Force was his best work. I love that X-Force cover. I mean, it's as off, what do you call it?
Proportion.
People don't, proportion, but it looks great.
Tiny feet.
Yeah, it looks
Tiny
great.
heads.
It's the style. But then he got way out
Belt
of it.
buckles.
McFarlane
lots of
always had
pouches
those
for
Yeah,
no
it's all
weird
about
reason.
Liefeld's all about the pouches.
all the pouches. I mean, look how skinny Spider-Man is here.
I like skinny Spider-Man.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. But McFarlane drew him skinny with those like pointed feet as he flew around. I mean, I don't know.
Big eyes.
It does bring me back to the 90s, but like these type of books, like this reminds me of walking through 7-Eleven, seeing black suit Spider-Man, because that's what brought me into him.
Maybe this is the case, JP. You mentioned this earlier. I think more Michelini than I do in McFarlane when I think of Spider-Man, like early '90s, like the style that I was used to. Like because you like the whole Venom and the Carnage and all that stuff. Like that to me, like in the earlier mid '90s, was more like the style I'm used to when McFarlane stopped doing it.
Yeah.
Well, but Michelini is the writer. He wasn't the artist.
Yeah, that whole well, what like
Eric Larson.
thank you, Eric Larson, like the
Yeah.
Carnage and the Venom. Yeah, Eric Larson, right?
And
Thank you.
you're
Which he was good
and
too.
Bagley is the one that drew the first Carnage.
He did, but I think Larson took over.
Larson
Right
did
after
346 and 347, which are those classic Venom covers, like the one with his eyes with the Spider-Man
yeah,
reflection, and then the other one where he's holding the Spider-Man skull. Those are Larson. But then Bagley took over, got all the way through Carnage.
I have that 347 somewhere. It's one of my favorite covers. For Larson did a great. He's the first one that did the tongue.
Yeah.
Venom
Yes,
tongue.
he's a long tongue. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It's
yeah. Both
that's
those
the thing.
guys.
When you go back and say, I trail these to get one big book, but when I go to a show and I don't have anything on my radar now, and I'm like, oh, that's that What If with Spider-Man. I'm gonna buy that. Oh, there's that Mike Zeck cover. Oh, all of a sudden I got $300 in comics that I didn't expect to want to buy.
But I think that plays to the type of collector that you are, right? Like,
Yeah,
I think that's what brings you enjoyment. Like that's what your jam is. Like that's the type of collector you are. It's not wrong.
No, nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. Like, that's what I'm saying. It brings me back to what I remember seeing as a kid. And the reason I don't have an X-Men 1 or a Fantastic Four on my list is just because I guess I never thought they'd be attainable.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I could drop $100,000, $1 million on. I'm just saying, like, if you had a retirement goal and saying,
well, let me just tell you this: if you can afford $1 million book, you have multiple millions of dollars. Like
right. That's what I'm saying.
At that level, it's not a function of
affording. If you had exactly $1 million, you're not buying a comic book.
Like,
well, if you think it's going to double in value, why wouldn't you? Right?
At that level, it's like you're just finding new avenues to park your money when you're buying.
Correct. You're using other means of cash, which is what I got back into comic collecting because I figured inflation, whatnot. Let's try to find comics here. So what I'm saying, but even I guess if you're in that range where you got multiple millions, we're talking you got to be $100 million or
I would think
50 million before you even buy that type of a book. But would you want to take 1/50th of your worth to put it into a piece of paper?
I think if you're buying $1 million book, you're in excess of 100 million.
Yeah, I couldn't fathom buying that kind of money. But I think you'd have to have so much of it that it didn't mean it was an alternate mean of cash.
Yeah, we can't even relate to it. It's
but
money doesn't matter to you if you're spending that money.
But I have people that are wealthy over time that I work with, and they still can't spend. Like he had the friend of mine. He tells me he had $100 bill on him, $100 bill. Drove to Philadelphia to pick up his granddaughter, and he wouldn't break that $100 to buy a hamburger at McDonald's. He went into his car and got change because he didn't want to break the 100 because he grew up poor and he made something of himself. Yeah. And he still couldn't fathom buying that, but then he can probably buy big farming equipment without batting an eye, So it's relative in that regard. But I mean, it's the mindset that really never leaves somebody unless you were silver spooned to a billionaire or multiple 100 millionaire. You know what I mean? To be able to transition assets that way. I mean, it's possible, but I still would find it hard to buy that size of a book.
If I hit the lottery, that's a different question. That's money I didn't have, like they didn't earn. You know what I mean? That's the difference too. Yeah. Like money you've earned. Like people, that's right. People who have a lot of money there tends to be frugal, right? That's how they get rich in the first place.
Right.
So that's why I would have a hard time if I ever was just successful. Like I would have a hard time letting my money go because it's money I earned, but it's money that you were given. Like if you ever lucked into money or something like that, forget it. That's where people just go crazy. You're like, make sure I'm set aside for retirement, and now I'm gonna buy some comic books I've never always wanted. That would happen. But if you've earned the money, I could totally see people being stingy with that. I get it. I'm very careful with money. Like I don't all the money I spend on comic books is stuff I get from very rarely to my own money. I spend a lot of it. It's money I put aside selling collectibles or things my own personal money. It never ever touches. I would never make a financial decision for a comic book that I would, even if it was a cheap comic, I can't do that.
I'm not like mortgage payment comic book. Like that's not a question.
Ever. Yeah, exactly. It is funny though. Sometimes I will balk at a $30 book Like, oh, gee, I'm not gonna spend that $30 or $40. But we'll go Chinese food the other night with with the kids, and it was like $40. I was like, oh yeah, that's what it is nowadays. Like you don't think twice when it comes to like going
Well,
out to eat or whatever. When it comes to certain like collectibles, like, oh, I've never spent that. It's
Yeah.
funny.
Here's a funny story on that one. Is I was at the auction yesterday. I bought this radio. I thought I could flip for maybe $100. Realized it didn't work as well as I thought. I have another one that works much better, and so I ended up selling it for like $20. I think I paid 7 for it. I sold it for 20, so I still made money. Then I went and on the way home, stopped at Goodwill and bought $20 worth of stuff. So all my profit went
Uh
away.
huh. No,
Just like
that's
so I'm
exactly
like
how it
that quick.
goes. Yeah, and that's why
But
I've had like a lot of times. It's funny. The books I end up regretting buying aren't like the bigger ones. The ones I regret are those ones, JP. Like you have a win, right? It's like when you're at the poker table or whatever, the blackjack table,
mhm.
you're up.
Yep.
I'm gonna go more time through the deck. You're kicking yourself, or on the way out, it's because you had the profit and you got rid of it. So I get mad, like, oh, I'm up. I got an awesome book at a great price, and then I buy a whole bunch of $1 books. I go
I,
home with. I'm like, why did I buy all these?
yeah,
Like this is
yeah,
my profit, and I'm never gonna get rid of these. That's
I
exactly the
know.
stuff that sticks in my craw. Yeah,
That's I buy these online auction with one book in mind, and then what ends up happening is that one book I'm able to sell for what I paid for the whole auction, and I'm stuck with a bunch of dollar books that
that's
I
it.
didn't want. The
It happens
point
all the
would be
time.
to sell the dollar books to get your money back and keep the big one you got in the auction, but
That's it.
never seems to work that way.
That's right. I sold a few hours ago. Actually, it's in the. I have to mail it. Actually, mailed it. No, today. Speaking of Spiderverse and speaking of like slab books and yard sales, the first cover appearance of the Spot. You guys know that
Oh,
really cool Al Milgrom
99?
cover, 99.
99?
I love the cover. Yeah, I got it at yard sale. Had a press and clean. Came back in 96. I've had it behind me
Oh
forever.
wow.
I threw it on eBay. I had it, I think, too cheap, but I saw Into the Spider-Verse. I'm like, Spot was pretty cool. I should probably raise the price of that book. And I didn't, and I forgot about it, and it sold. It's probably sold $20-$30 too cheap, but
Yeah.
whatever. So I shipped out because I was like, I like that book. I just thought it was a cool cover. So I don't really regret that because I got it so cheap. I had to pay to get it graded, but that's one of the ones I regret just because I screwed up. You know what I mean? I'm not even mad I sold it. I'm mad I sold it because I acknowledged the fact it was too low and I knew it was gonna sell. Like that's the
Well,
stuff that bugs me. I still want to sell it. Like I don't know. That's the stuff that
how many
kind of
times you put something on eBay and then let's say I put it up at night, I wake up the next day it's sold. I'm like, shit. I know
all the time. I know.
it was too low in price.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
did that
did
with
that with go
the
ahead.
Golden Age Spider-Man. I talked about it in a video last year. I got a brochure from the 40s, early Spider-Man brochure.
Oh yeah.
And my bike, yeah, and I threw it up.
The
I
Superman
threw
one.
up, yeah, Superman. Sorry, I put out like 11 o'clock at night. Went to bed. I woke up in the morning and it sold like an hour and a half later. And the person like lowballed me, and then we met in the middle. But then I sold. I thought I was happy. I made a huge profit on it, and I was like, well, crap. I accepted the first offer on this book 2 hours after I posted it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I probably undersold that. I probably could have waited. Oops, but I was excited that I
But
flipped it.
that happens, I put something online today and I got an offer on it and I was like, I should take it because if I asked him for $5 more or $10
Oh, I
more,
know.
and then he might not come back. And now I have to then I'll end up selling it a month for that same damn price. So let's
I've
just
done that.
get
I've
rid of
said
it now.
no for over $5, and I've had people write me back saying you blew it. Like they don't
Yeah.
make a counter offer. It's like so I've done that too. I'm like,
You blew
fine,
it.
take the 5. It's something along those lines. Like that was a good deal.
Yeah, that's
Shame on you. I was like, come on, you don't know what I'm into it for. But that's happened to me, and that. So I've taken lower offers just because you want to move it, and I
yeah.
know if I sell this, I'll just get a new book. So I sold that Spot. I love that book. Great Al Milgrom cover. I'd love to have like a signed version of that sometime. But now in my mind, I'm thinking, oh well, I'm just gonna when the next time I buy a book for like $100, I'll be like, oh, that was that book.
And you'll be able to get the Spot book soon. I found the Hypno Hustler at a flea market for like $10. I mean,
I
the
don't know
guy,
what that is. What is
it's
that?
Was that a hot book for a hot second when they announced like Donald Glover was going to be the Hypno Hustler in some show?
Oh no, I have no idea what
Spectacular
that is.
Spider-Man 24. It's like a disco looking cover.
Oh, so
And
it's
I
a
found
modern. It's a modern book. Yeah.
it's Spec Spider-Man 24, so it's probably 80s, like early 80s.
Oh,
Um,
Spectre's. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. I'll send you a picture of it, but I found it for like I don't know, maybe $10. I sold it for 50. Maybe I took a $40 offer on it again. Someone lowballed me, and I said that's fine. I'll find it again, and I found it at the flea market over Memorial Day for $5. So you'll find that Spot for 20 somewhere.
Yeah, I'll find another. I
Yeah.
sold multiple copies of it. To be honest with you, I find it often, and I've sold it. Wolverine '88. That's another book. I think I showed on my channel. I got it pretty cheap. Went to resell it. Same thing. I got someone was a low offer, or whatever. I said no. Kicked myself. Like I should have taken it, and then someone bought it at the top price without negotiating. Like 2 days later. So sometimes it goes the reverse.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I made 10 more bucks. This person didn't even try to give me a little
I
bit.
know.
That does happen. So you win some, lose some. You never know.
Yeah, that's true. I keep finding that Spec Spider-Man 97, the first Jonathan on. I couldn't give that book away. But I don't find the 99 or 100.
No, they care about 98. 98 and 99 are the ones people want.
I found 97, 98, like multiple copies of them early on, and I could never find 99, which I would love that yellow cover. Just
awesome
pops.
Cover. Yeah.
But
yeah.
So
could have showed it to you a few hours ago. It's gone.
Well, we should wrap this up. Yeah, I got these kids are all screaming now. I got a house full of sick kids here, so
I do too. But luckily on the East Coast here, mine are all sleeping, I think.
Yeah.
So
I don't think mine are, but either way, I don't know. How do we want to end this? You want to do the ending for us, Rohan? Then I'll play. Fun music.
Mike, thanks for joining us again.
Always a pleasure, guys. I always enjoy hanging out with you guys.
Please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.
All right, everybody. Peace out.
Do it again soon, guys. See ya.
Yeah, take care.